All right, you guys. First of all, good afternoon from Pakistan. We have been around 200 plus participants signed up for this event. And first of all, thank you so much, guys, for showing your interest in learning about carbon credits. My name is Usman Wahid. I'm a country sales manager for Jubilee Bros Pakistan. And shall we start?
Please do, please do.
Well, first of all, the main you can say the sponsors for the sponsors for this event who has you can say helped us in promoting this event is the Jubilee Bros Solar, the solar division of Jubilee Bros, then SKP Group, and then again Huawei. We have been the value-added partners for Huawei as well, and Middle East Solar Industry Association, MISIA, and FCA, Africa Solar Industry Association. And without them, this wouldn't have been possible. A bit about the roadmap, what you guys can expect from this presentation. So in start, we will be telling a bit about Jubilee Bros and SKP Group. Then we will try to make a link between carbon credits and renewables, and we will look into a bit of a background of carbon credits and the market needs. Then we will go through about the process of carbon credits, what are the benefits, what are the benefits that different industries can get when they opt for carbon credits and stuff like that. So moving forward, a bit about the history of our group. Jubilee Bros incepted 40 years back. We started our business from Lebanon. We are the largest OEMs of Perkins gensets. After Perkins itself, in 1992, we started our operations in UAE. And since then, we have opened our branches in 10 different countries. And the total number of branches and the service centers that are operating are 29. And we have also got 3 manufacturing plants. Well, recently in January 2020, we have opened a branch in Pakistan. Well, the goal of Jubilee Bros is we want to become a leader in electromechanical field in Middle East, Africa, and Asia region. And our mission is to ensure customer delight by providing superior products and services. Well, service part is the main thing on which we specifically, you can say, bank upon. Well, I will not going to take much of your time. We will quickly go through the, you can say, products that Jubilee Bros offer. As I've already told you that we started off, you can say, distributing and distributing Perkins genset. And as far as the solar products are concerned, we are partners with Trina Solar Panels, which is, of course, one of the, you can say, top tier brand. And as far as the structures is concerned, we are partners with Lumix. Lumix provide all sorts of structures from all sorts of aluminum-based structures, right from flat land to. You're saying that I cannot hear anything. Asim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you well. Guys, if there is a noise issue, if there is a sound issue, then please let us know.
I think everybody's having it. Is your audio completely turned on, Usman?
Okay,
Little green.
Wonderful. Alongside that, I was talking about the Trina solar panels. We are also partners with Lumix Energy. Lumix Energy specializes in providing the best quality aluminum structures. They've got structures for all sorts of services. They've got structures for flat lands, the flat rooftops, you can say inverted beams for carports and everything. Well, moving forward, as I've already told you that we are partners with Huawei. We are basically the value-added partners of Huawei. Alongside that, we are also the CSP certified service providers. Well, what benefit that you can get from Jubilee Bros is that we basically contain stock. There's a 24/7 stock availability, and by the virtue of BAP value-added partners, we can provide best possible prices and the local support. What we do is we provide commissioning support as well as, you can say, design support, and the most important, the after sale part. We take care of that part as well. Now, coming to the main topic, which is the carbon credit, and the reason why we all are here today. Well, being in the solar industry, well, everyone knows that if you put a solar on your rooftop, or if you go towards renewable, well, you eventually really end up, you can say, reducing your carbon footprints. But what everyone don't know is the how part of things, how this thing actually works. What are the main, you can say, governing bodies involved in this? So, in order to address that, we have with us Mr. Asan Kamran. He is the director of SKP Group, and over 15 years of experience in business, legal, and corporate consulting. He is, I would say, the most adequate person to, you can say, talk about it. Over to you, Aston.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and well, morning wherever it is for everybody. I think people have joined in from across the world, so we're going to keep this in English. My name's Essen. I'm the Director of Operations of SKP Group. Quick background of SKP Group. SKP Group's in the consulting field for the last 30 years. I'm a qualified lawyer myself. Our senior partner, which would be my father, is a qualified chartered accountant. We have our own audit firm, our tax firm, law firm, carbon credit consulting, HR consulting, and project management consulting. So we're basically a one-stop shop for all types of consulting in-house for startups and for large-scale organizations to mid-scale organizations. We got into the carbon consulting business in the last 10 years. We have been leading the way in Pakistan. In carbon credit consulting, we've worked on various projects, and I've also chaired various government positions where we have worked with China and different companies on large-scale carbon projects. We're going to keep it very interactive. So if anyone has a question, you can just type it out or say anything, and I'll address your questions. I'll run a quick video just to give you a basic of carbon credits, and then we can run through our slideshows with it. So here we go.
Global warming. Sea levels are on the rise. The weather is becoming increasingly more extreme and unpredictable. Species after species face extinction, and severe water shortage threatens dry regions. All of these are direct consequences of our greenhouse gas emissions, and the trend we must stop now. Tradable carbon units are one of the most effective weapons in the battle for a better environment. But what is a carbon unit? A carbon unit is a permit to emit 1 ton of CO2. This is equal to the emissions of a one-way flight from Oslo to Bangkok for one person, or 5 months of driving by an average Norwegian motorist. So how does the emission trading scheme actually work? The emission trading scheme determines how much CO2 and other greenhouse gases we can emit. In 1997, most of the countries in the world signed the Kyoto Protocol. The aim of this agreement is that all industrialized countries should reduce their total emissions of greenhouse gases by at least 5% from 2008 to 2012, compared to their emissions in 1990. The UN distributes quotas of carbon units to those industrialized countries that have signed the treaty. These units set a limit on the level of emissions. This limit is equivalent to the total amount of CO2 that these countries are permitted to emit, and which is less than the anticipated emissions. Some countries are so successful in reducing their emissions that they simply don't need all the carbon units they've been allocated, while other countries may struggle to reduce their emissions and need more units. Countries may, therefore, buy and sell carbon units. The price of tradable units depends on how many there are in circulation. Similar to a stock exchange, prices vary according to supply and demand. Each country is individually responsible for deciding how to cut its emissions. Heavy industry is often responsible for a large share of a country's CO2 emissions. Many countries have therefore decided that these industries must make the largest contribution towards emission reductions. Let's look at an example. Factory A and B have both been allocated carbon units by their authorities. Factory A decides to reduce its emissions by implementing climate-friendly measures. Their reduction efforts are in fact so successful that they have carbon units to spare. These can then be sold. Factory B, on the other hand, is unable to reduce its emissions and has to buy carbon units from Factory A, for instance. However, Factory B can also cover its emissions by investing in CO2 reducing measures in Factory C, which is located in a developing country. Although this country does not have any obligations under the Kyoto Protocol, the UN can still approve the emission reductions and give Factory B carbon units equivalent to the reductions in Factory C. So, regardless of whether Factory B buys units from Factory A or C, the result is reduced emissions.
Right. So that was the video basically covering the basics of it. Now, we'll send you Nordine will send you the video link. It's on YouTube. So we're going to speak about the clean development mechanism. There are many carbon mechanisms which have been created in different countries by the United Nations, but the one, because we're mostly addressing Pakistan and third world countries, it's called CDM, which is the Clean Development Mechanism, which has been created by the UN. So basically, there are two kinds of markets for us to look at. Sorry, I'm just fixing my slides. So there's a compliance market and a voluntary market. Compliance means the same thing. You have a quota, you need to comply, you need to bring down your emissions or control them. You buy carbon credits from someone who has generated the carbon credits, and you balance it out with them. So we're just going to look at the compliance market at the moment. So is the slide coming up? Right. So carbon credits are generated by reducing greenhouse gases. There are 6 different types of greenhouse gases, but it is measured in carbon dioxide because that's the mostly widely available gas. So when you reduce 1 ton of carbon credit in your 1 ton of carbon dioxide in your processes, you earn 1 carbon credit. So 1 ton carbon dioxide reduced is 1 carbon credit. But for instance, methane is about 21 times deadlier than carbon dioxide. So reducing 1 ton of methane gets you 21 carbon credits. The same way sulfur hexafluoride is 21,000 times deadlier than carbon dioxide. So reducing 1 ton of that gets you 21,000 carbon credits. There are 2 ways to reducing these greenhouse gases. There is a direct way, which is you have, say, methane or carbon dioxide emitting in your processes, in your manufacturing processes, and you directly burn them or capture them. That is a direct way. The indirect way is switching to renewable energy, like in solar. Say, for instance, you're setting up a new factory and you want to set up a 5 megawatt power plant over there. So instead of setting up a 5 megawatt furnace oil based plant, you'll set up a 5 megawatt solar plant. That means that the emissions that a 5 megawatt plant would have created will not be created now, and you're saving 5 megawatts of emissions per year having the solar plant in place. So we're going to talk about that, about how that's how setting up renewable energy projects or substituting or switching to renewable energy earns you carbon credits. We've already discussed that the Kyoto Protocol was signed by majority of the countries globally, and that's how CDM was born. Recently, there has been a market dip because the Kyoto Protocol was not ratified by India and America. Because, sorry, consider removing the video to, yeah, let me just move this. I don't know how to move it. Sorry, yeah. So there was a dip because you see the quotas are on industrialized nations. The whole point of the CDM is to give incentive to developing countries to go green. And the incentive comes in carbon credits. Because if you just put a quota on a developing country, which is us, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, any developing countries, then they say it is too expensive for us to switch to renewable. We cannot do that. Hence, CDM was born. So as you can see, developing countries have no targets, but through CDM they can take part in this, and developed countries have targets, and through CDM they can invest in developing countries and reduce their emissions indirectly because it's a global game. So even if it's reduced in Pakistan, they can manage their quotas in developed countries because globally they've reduced it, they've invested in emission reduction. Sorry about the slides, they're loading a bit slow. So these are different potential CDM projects which you can work on. You can see solar is number one, then there's wind, there's hydro, there's biodiesel, there's bagasse switching in, there's fuel switching. So anywhere where you're switching to healthier, cleaner power is where you can earn carbon credits. This is the CDM project cycle. I'll just run you guys through this a little bit. CDM has to be applied before start of project. I'll get to that later why. But it's a long process because there are a few government agencies involved locally, and internationally the United Nations is involved. So what happens is that when you decide to run a project and before your financial close, you have to apply to the United Nations that we're going to do this project to earn carbon credits. So you have to make sure that you prove that you're doing it to earn carbon credits. If you will not get the carbon credits, your project will be very expensive and you rather do dirty fuel in your project. Because if your project is up and running for a few years and you're making money in that, then that means you are not you set up the project for your own benefit and not for the environmental benefit. So then your project will fail and you will not be given any carbon credits. Now the main document of a project is called the PDD, which is the project design document, which we prepare for the project. The PDD is about a 60 to 70 page lengthy document, which is submitted to the United Nations. So what happens is that when you're setting up the project, you contact us, we sign off with you, we make a PIN first, which is a project information note. We do a estimate of your project, how many carbon credits you will get. In Pakistan, again, it depends on the baseline, which I will come to later, but rule of thumb is about 1,500 carbon credits per megawatt yearly. Once we do that, we make the PDD, and the PDD is then sent to for host country approval to the MOE, which is your country's national regulatory body for carbon credits. While the PDD is getting host country approval, at the same time, you should move forward for your financial close. Once you get your host country approval and your financial close is done, then you go towards validation. Validation is done by a third party accreditor authorized by the UN to come and validate your project, to see if the project is on ground, to see if it's according to the PDD, to see if there is a project site, if the documents are real or not fake, if the project proponents are actually there or not. Usually, validators are companies like SGS, TUV. So every country has their own validators. They take a small fee, they come and they sign off and they validate your project. When your project is validated, the PDD is submitted to the United Nations. And that's where the main goal is. If the United Nations approves that your project is worth it, it falls under the carbon scheme, they register your project. Registration is the goal to earn carbon credits. Once you've registered the project with the UN, they can send it for review also, that there's some issues in your PDD or your calculations, and you can submit it again. Once you've registered the project, that's when you have basically crossed the main hurdle. And after that, you, by that time, that it takes about a year and a half. So by that time, your COD should be approaching of your project. Once your project is ready, it has to start working. And carbon credits are not just given on the paper that it was a 50 megawatt project, so please give us carbon credits. Then you have to monitor your project of how much actual electricity was substituted or consumed. Once those reports are monitored and how much you gave to the grid or used captively, then the same validator comes back after a year and verifies your reports that you actually performed. Once those reports are verified, you send them to the UN again, and that's where your carbon credits are issued into your registry account and issued to you. And from there on, you can hold them, forward sell them. There are a million different ways of. That's another transactional area, which we can discuss later. So these are called CERs, which are certified emission reductions. There's another market. These you sell to compliance markets where it is important to reduce your quota. But then there's another market which is called the VERs, which are voluntary emission reductions. Those are not issued by the UN. Those are issued by private issuers like SGS and TUV. Back in the day, they used to have a cheaper price to sell than CERs, but these days they have the same price. In that, you don't have to involve your host country approval. You don't need UN registration. It is a private party to private party transaction to get your VERs. And then the buyers are not compliance buyers, but CSR buyers. Google will buy it, airlines will buy it, anybody for corporate social responsibility will buy those kind of credits. People will buy them. Those are called VERs. We have successfully registered 2 VER projects in Pakistan, which is FFC Wind and Master Wind, and their projects were issued carbon credits also. We took the VER route because their projects had done their financial close, and the United Nations is very stringent on your financial close dates and your timelines. VERs are a little easier to earn. So as I said, operating entities are again your validators and your verifiers. They validate and certify your emission reductions that they actually took place and the project was successful. They submit your PDD to the UN, and then there's a review done. And examples are DNV, TUV, SGS. So in different countries, there are different OEs. Now, three main components make up the PDD: the baseline, the additionality, and the monitoring. Baseline is your baseline of your country. So see, Pakistan's baseline is mostly furnace oil and gas-powered power generation. So our baseline is very dirty. Your project has to do something which is better than the baseline, and you have to see the difference of your baseline emissions of your country and your project emissions. For instance, Nepal is a country where there's a lot of hydro. So their baseline is already a hydro baseline, which is less emission. So if you were to set up a hydropower project in Nepal, it would probably fail registration because it was the same as the baseline. So which means that you have to do something which is better than the baseline. Let me just bring this slide up and I'll show it to you. Sorry about the slides. Right. And of course, the project has to fall under a methodology also of the UN. You can't just say, "Oh, I got these bricks and I fired gas in them, and I should earn carbon credits." Every different project, be it methane abatement, be it renewable energy, be it solar, it has to fall under a methodology. But switching to renewable energy is already a certified methodology of the United Nations. EB means the executive board of the UNFCCC, which is the governing body. The second thing we come to is additionality. Additionality is one of the key features and the key rules of earning carbon credits. Additionality means that your project, the carbon credits have to be additional to your project, and your project has to be additional. Meaning that if you are already, if the project is easy for you to do, if the project will make you money, then that means again, it's for the incentive is for your own, and it is not for the environment. So the addition, you have to prove the additionality, that it is not business as usual, or you're not free riding on the carbon credits. You can give social barriers to entry. You can give technical barriers, that solar is a new kind of technology in Pakistan or these different countries. That is why it is additional, and hence we require the carbon credits, because it will increase the IRR of our project. If the IRR of your project is already very high and the numbers are looking very good, it will not be considered additional. That is again our job as consultants, to make and show how the project will be additional and how it will help the bottom line of your balance sheet. If it does not, if we can't show a jump, and that means that you're doing it for yourself. So it's very important to make sure that the project is additional, and you apply for project. It's called a prior consideration, and you give prior consideration before financial close of your project at concept stage. Yes, Afghanistan can apply for CC. There's Annex 1 countries and Annex 2. It is one of the Annex countries which can apply for CDM and for VERs. All right, so monitoring is one of the other things which we have to look at after the project has started. Monitoring reports, again, us as consultants, we create for you and have to keep filling them, because carbon credits are given on actual performance. Say you set up a 25 megawatt project, but it is shut for half the year. So, and the other half year it has generated electricity and given to the grid or used internally. You will get carbon credits on that, not on the whole project. So the monitoring reports are very important, and they will check with your utility regulator that if you have exported power or not to the grid, and those reports are then verified by the validator who came in earlier and sent to the UN. The baseline of the UAE, we will have to calculate for you, because we will need to see the energy yearbooks. Every country has energy yearbooks, and we require at least 5 years of energy yearbooks to calculate the baseline, because it's a long configuration. Again, if it's natural gas, when you switch to RE projects, you'll see what the natural gas baseline is and where we can do it. We'll share with you Annex 1 and Annex 2 country lists, where you can see where carbon credits can be generated. They're usually called Annex 1 and Annex 2 countries. If you type in CDM in Google and write Annex 1 and Annex 2, you'll see which countries have quotas and which countries are the ones where CDM is applicable. So these are some of the risks that CDM comes with. Registration risk, market risk. There is a lot of market risk now. Back in the day, CDM carbon credits used to sell for about $10 a carbon credit. But at this moment, the market is low. They're selling from anywhere from 50 cents to one carbon credit. The cycle of carbon credits, either you can take 2 cycles of 10 years each, or you can take 3 cycles of 7 years each. So for at least 20 years, you will earn carbon credits. You can keep them in your portfolio. You can accumulate them. You can also forward sell carbon credits at a discounted rate. Sometimes the manufacturer or the equipment supplier takes carbon credits from you. and gives you a subsidy on the equipment. That is what happened with Mitsubishi in Pakistan. A fertilizer company was setting up a very large abatement project. Mitsubishi gave them the technology for very cheap, and in return asked for carbon credits. The company didn't know about carbon credits, and the company signed off the ERPA, which is the Emission Reductions Purchase Agreement, as a forward sell to Mitsubishi. And Mitsubishi took about a few $1 million a year worth of carbon credits off of them. So you really need to see how you structure your carbon credits, when you want to sell them and when you don't want to sell them. One of the main important things which I would like to discuss is the cost of earning carbon credits. At this moment, the generated credits will not sell for a lot, but the cost of earning carbon credits, from the DOE cost to the consultant cost to the application cost, varies from between, in Pakistan, between 60,000 to 80 to 90,000 US dollars. Now, if you're setting up a half a megawatt project, at that moment you will not think that, oh, I'll never get my money back out of carbon credits. But say, for instance, you're setting up a 10 megawatt or a 20 megawatt project where there's millions of dollars of investment happening, then spending $100,000 is very favorable. Even if you don't recover that $100,000, if the market doesn't pick up, it makes your company globally known. It's a marketing tool, and it becomes a corporate social responsibility tool also, and a carbon disclosure tool for your company, that, listen, we are so green that we earn carbon credits. Also, sometimes investors like OPEC have already requirements of that you have to apply for carbon credits or they will not invest in your projects. And sometimes buyers like Nike or Adidas or international buyers have requirements also for the manufacturer to be earning carbon credits and being green. Carbon pricing at the moment is at a very low point. It is between 50 cents to $1, and CERs and VERs both are nearly the same amount. But again, if you are setting up a large scale project, you should definitely apply for carbon credits, because not does it only make your project look good. If the carbon markets picks up soon, it will sell for a lot, and it's a requirement for many investors and buyers. At the moment, there's a new treaty or a new document called CORSIA, which all the airlines have signed to reduce their carbon footprint. And because of that, the carbon market has started picking up more and the price has started going up higher. So these are basically the things we do in the compliance market. This is everything we will be doing, is identifying and seeing if your project is worthy, doing a PDD development, working with the validator, structuring your sales, or vetting your ERPAs, which are your emission reduction purchase agreements, and also finding financiers who can back your projects versus an equity in carbon credits. It's, yes, 90 to 100K is the cost irrespective of the project size, because these are different costs of different consultants. Also, just let me, two very important points, that if you have multiple projects, for instance, you have 10 projects of 1 megawatt each, then you can bundle them. That is called a project of activities. So what you do is you make a project design document of your 10 projects together with given dates and timelines that we will be doing these 10 projects. And then you take up that whole as one, and then you have only one application fee and one consulting fee and so on. It might be a little more, but that is called a POA. It is called a project of activities. The second thing for solar EPCs is very important. When you're pitching to a client, you can always say that we will do your carbon and we can always work with different EPCs, supporting them and consulting the client, and always doing free estimates of of the client's project. So no, the carbon credit project does not have to be 50 megawatts. Even at 10 megawatts, I think it's quite a large investment, or 5 megawatts. And again, depends. I mean, it might be that it's your company's policy that even if it's 1 megawatt, you have to apply for carbon credits? A company which has lots of we'll have to see. 3 years is a long time. If they've set up 3 years, even VERs would be difficult, but we could always take a look at that. Right. So, as I told you about the voluntary market and the VERs, I've already discussed them. They're becoming very popular because you don't have to work through CDM and through the United Nations in that. They're issued easily also, and they're not as complex, and they don't have such stringent rules on project start dates also. And that's why we also decided to do VER projects. When I chaired a meeting with AEDB a few years ago, everywhere it said CDM in the PC1 and the TORs of all the wind power projects. But I recommended changing the word CDM to carbon markets, and that way you can play either in the CDM field or in the VER field. So now projects, according to AEDB, are allowed to earn in carbon markets. So it does not have to be only CDM. Again, mostly the VER process is the same as the CDM process, which is we make a PIN, we sign off with you, we write a PDD for you. At the same time, you do your financial close, we prove additionality, we calculate the baseline, and then we apply for verification for the VERs. And of course, then do your portfolio management and buy and find buyers. Yes, Noreen, you can link all of them. You can make them part of the project of activities if the project proponent is the same. You can definitely do that. These are some of the credentials of work we have done before in Pakistan. These were just fuel switches. So you're switching to renewable energy. The wind projects aren't listed here because they were part of our wind portfolio. Internationally, we work with our partners who are called Emergent Ventures. They're one of the global market players internationally, and they're a multinational who do all our technical work. And they, as you can see, they manage a portfolio of more than 60 million carbon credits. They've done a lot of work in India, in Asia, in Indonesia. They have gotten a lot of methodologies approved also. So that's basically a quick run through of what the carbon credits markets are and what a mechanism is. And now if you would like to ask any questions, I'm right here. Yes, it does vary from country to country. At the moment, the ones generated in Pakistan are selling between 50 to 60 cents. Pakistan, as you know, is a sort of a controversial country globally. So credits generated in Pakistan are at the moment being pushed for a little less than credits being sold from other countries. And that's due to our dynamics of corruption and all, because a few projects, again, they tried to write them on paper and get them validated with other project being on ground, and it never took off. So we did get some backlash from the international community on it, but now it's going up. Generally, guys, the price of the carbon credit at this moment will be anywhere from 50 cents to $1. And that's 1,500 carbon credits per megawatt per year, and then you can multiply by 7. It depends how long the project has been running for. Again, it will not matter if it's making money now or not. At its financial close, it will say that you did a financial close because you thought you will make money, not because you will be doing it for the environment. So it would be a bit difficult. It's a 7-year cycle, Deepak. So every 7 years you have to reapply and get a recertified. But for 7 years you get carbon credits, and you can apply 3 times for it. Or there's a 10-year cycle also, so you can do it for 2 times for 10 years. Let me just look at the other questions. Danielle, I wouldn't know about the largest markets in Africa, but I'll definitely get back to you on it if you email me. Price definitely varies. There are no buyers in Pakistan. Nestle or other multinationals, Telenor, we're working with them to start buying carbon credits from us for not for compliance, but for voluntary reasons. But there are not many buyers in Pakistan. The buyers are usually Annex 1 countries, which are European countries or Japan or countries like that, or corporate social responsibility buyers. Um, George, for a hydrogen project, we will also see which country the baseline is of the country and what the switching, how many emission reductions you'll be doing, and what will be the difference between if you were running on diesel and then running on hydrogen, and if there's an approved methodology for it. So we'll have to see your country's baseline and an approved methodology if hydrogen is even allowed as a fuel switch. If your Fawaz, if your project has completed validation and you're waiting for credit allocations, that should be very easy. If your validation has been submitted, and if you've is this validation for CERs or VERs? And because there's a fee, I think there's about a 10 cent per CER fee that you have to pay the UN. So once you pay the fee, the UN should release your carbon credits into your registry. Mr. Gul, yes, that's a great 3 times 10 megawatt is definitely a large project. You should definitely apply for it. If you can again email me some information, I can get my team on board and we can see how many you can apply and where it is. See, again, if it's 30 megawatts, that's millions and millions of dollars. So spending 60, 70, 80, $100,000 on carbon credits is a cherry on the top. In the future, if the market picks up, again, there are 2 sides to this, guys. There's the selling the carbon credits idea, which is the whole point of carbon credits. But then there's also the corporate social responsibility and the marketing tool. So if your project's worth 10 million, $1 million, $2 million, it shouldn't be. This should be definitely part of your project. No, once they're bought, the credits finish and the supplier dissipates them, the buyer dissipates them, and that's the whole point of an offset. You can't buy credits and then resell them. You buy them and you offset your own emissions or that. What shall be the next step to sell them? Depends, Fawaz, on your consultant. If he's managing your portfolio, if he's written your ERPA, which is the emission reduction purchase agreement, if he's buying, if he's marketing in different, there are different auctions also where you can people bid for credits, which auctions he's taking place in, if he's planning to do a spot sale or a forward sale in the future at a discounted price, that all your consultant will be able to tell you, who has written your PDD and is managing your credits for you. Again, we will have to see if there's an approved methodology of switching to a hybrid of solar to diesel. In the end of the day, yes, it is approved, because it is about emission reduction. If you've switched half to solar, that means half of the diesel's emissions have been reduced. So yes, you will earn from that. Is there any formula to calculate the carbon emission? For example, 1 megawatt of PV, how much? You will have to see the baseline. If it's Pakistan, it's about 1,500. 1 megawatt offsets about 1,500 tons of carbon dioxide, so which is 1,500 carbon credits. But again, when we sit down and we see exactly your processes and exact emissions and the country's current baseline, then we will let you know. No, it's just a 7-year cycle of validation, Daniel. It's not pegged to anything. And you can keep accumulating the credits, and you can even sell them at the end. You don't have to sell them as soon as you accumulate them. Andy, again, it'll depend on how many carbon credits you get per megawatt. It is not, the return is not in millions, I know, but if your investment is in millions, you should definitely apply for it. In the future, if the market picks up, there is a lot of return. But then again, there is a lot of compliance issues for projects from investors and buyers of your product, that you should be complied with carbon credits. For us, again, depends on, I'm guessing it'll be 95,000 credits a year. It depends, because selling the credits also, there's an issuance fee, there's a registry fee, you can keep accumulating, there's a verification fee. You don't have to verify your project every year also. The monitoring reports, if the market is low, you can verify the reports every 3 years. and issue the credits every 3 years into your account. It again depends on what your consultant is doing and what your consultant's plan is of selling your credits. At the moment, yes, I, as a consultant myself, shouldn't be saying this, but I have to be transparent and honest. The market isn't in the best of conditions, but it is picking up with Corsia coming into play, with other markets coming into play. So yes, if you have a 1 megawatt project, it's something to think about before applying for carbon credits. But if you cross 5 or 6 megawatts, then it should be a no-brainer that you should still do it, because the percentage cost of your total investment is very little on that. 100 megawatt would be great again for us. And I think we're done with time over here, or it's no, we still have time. There's a webinar survey. So if anyone has any other questions, you can contact me on LinkedIn. You can get in touch with Jubaili Brothers team. You can email me or the Jubaili Brothers team. And you know, the main point is that for EPCs of solar, which we're discussing with today also, that you should have this knowledge when you're selling your solar EPC or your solar projects to a buyer to set up solar, just as a more incentive and as a bigger knowledge base. And of course, it will be you can give a better turnkey solution where you're giving this service with your EPC as well. So if anyone has any questions, please let us know now, or we can conclude. Yes, it does. The energy mix is the baseline. So we will have to see what the baseline of the country is, and the total energy mix calculates the baseline. And that's where we get the exact emission reduction of the carbon credits at Fansad. I'm sorry, I don't understand what a default mix or a defined mix is. If you could email your question to me, I could get my technical team to look at it. But we haven't come across this term when dealing with carbon credits till now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carolina. Hope this was informative, guys. And we're always here to support you guys. Any questions needed, you can surely email us, and we'll see what we can do for you. Jubaili has a global presence, and so does our carbon team have a global presence. So we can work with you in other countries as well to help you, or to at least consult you in ways forward, because we've played in the global markets carbon space for a while. So we would definitely be able to sort of guide you, if not work with you. That's for Usman's, and I'll type in my email address again over here, and there you guys go. So I'm glad you guys, I would like to thank Jubaili Brothers for setting up this webinar, and I would definitely advise you guys to work with us in Jubaili for your future solar projects as well, where we could maximize your carbon credit and your power generation output. Thank you very much. Is that all, Usman? Should we sign off, or do you require anything else? I can't hear you, Usman. Let me just get my LinkedIn up also. I'll just give you the link for it.